What's up, everyone? Welcome back to C&D Sports. We've got something a little different today with the MLB regular season wrapping up. We're looking back on a team that kind of surprised everyone, the San Francisco Giants, who, as of right now, season's not over yet, but they are the best team in baseball.
Yeah, and it's not even much of an argument at this point.
No.
I mean, they can still be passed by the Dodgers.
Yeah.
And the Blue Jays are on the rise and teams in the AL East. But overall, to now, the San Francisco Giants have dominated this entire season in a way we expected the Dodgers and Padres to.
Yep.
So we're going to break down, or Caleb's going to break down, how this came about.
Yeah, as when the season started and odds makers made their predictions, San Francisco was pegged at 75 wins. So the fact that they're likely going to exceed 100 wins this year, I'd be shocked if they didn't. They could get between 25 and 30 wins above what they were projected at. And for any team to do that is outstanding. Whether or not they finish with the best record, as you said, the Dodgers can pass them. That remains to be seen. But they certainly are the best performing team. Everyone expects the Dodgers to be at the top of the league. But no one expects San Francisco, who... they've been near the bottom. They've had top 5 draft picks within there, picking guys like Joey Bart. They've been near the bottom of what is a very top-heavy division, but everyone kind of expected them to hang around with the Rockies and the Diamondbacks this year. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. And we'll start with the obvious one. You mentioned the Padres. The Padres turned out to just be an average team this year. They underperformed. And it's looking like the Padres are going to miss the playoffs. And when they miss the playoffs, we will likely have a video up explaining that, because that's just as surprising. So stay tuned for that. I won't break down the Padres too much on this video. But when a team underperforms, obviously there's going to be some wins up for grabs. And being in that division, they play the Padres a lot. Therefore, San Francisco was able to grab a fair amount of wins from San Diego. And I think it also helps that Arizona underperformed. They weren't supposed to be a playoff team, but I don't think anyone thought that they'd be near the bottom of the MLB this year. I thought they'd be a little more competitive. And of course, when you play the Rockies, so they already had the benefit of the doubt that they had 3 bad teams, 1 average team and 2 really bad teams in that division. So the underperforming helps get wins. But the hitters themselves, the pitchers, they've gotten all-around performances. There's no weak spot on this team. So we'll start with the hitters here. I've got 6 outlined here, but there are 2 other guys that have a WAR above 2. Mike Yastrzemski is just under 2. So when this doesn't include Steven Duggar, it doesn't include Lamont Wade. It just shows that these are just 6 guys of a very deep team. They're what I like to think of them as the name brand Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of players that in Brandon Crawford, Buster Posey, Chris Bryant, Brandon Belt, Evan Longoria. But they also have a lot of guys that you wouldn't expect. One of them on this list in Darren Ruff. I mentioned Lamont Wade. I mentioned Steven Duggar. I mentioned Mike Yastrzemski, who's really making a name for himself. They just find ways top to bottom to beat you. And they don't have necessarily, in terms of hitting, they don't have the MVP on their team.
No.
They don't have, it's really been, they've kind of looked back to the fountain of youth, getting the best season of his career out of Brandon Crawford, who I guess is a dark horse for MVP. He's certainly, you can talk about him, but he's not one of the front runners by any means. Buster Posey looks like a World Series champion, a 3-time World Series champion, Buster Posey. Chris Bryant has been very good since he was sent over here. So Brandon Belt, again, looks good. And they've really relied on performances. I think I'll highlight Darren Ruff here. Darren Ruff was in Korea for 2 seasons. His career had kind of gone downhill with the Phillies. He signs in Korea, hits really well there. Giants take a chance on him. He cracks the lineup and has really been an everyday staple. He looks sound out there. That he's got a great he gets on base a lot. He hits for power. It's one of those things where you saw Tampa Bay pioneer this, and San Francisco has just done it better than Tampa Bay because they're doing it with guys that So really, there's no weak spot from top to bottom in the lineup. And then you move to their starters. They don't have a Cy Young winner on their team. Kevin Gausman, again, like Brandon Crawford, is in that conversation. But I think it's pretty clear cut that it's going to be between Corbin Burns, Max Scherzer, Brandon Woodruff's probably in there, Walker Buehler, Luis Urias. There's a lot of guys you can consider there. It's really going to be a Burns and Scherzer show there. So, yeah. But Gausman's a guy that you mentioned. And you just look from their top three. Logan Webb has he's always had potential, but he's really utilized that. Anthony Desclafani, again, he just needed the right place. And San Francisco has proved to be a place where pitchers can go and pitch like themselves. Kevin Gausman had immense potential in Baltimore. But I was reading some things and watching some videos that when he was with Baltimore, he never really got to pitch the way he wanted to. And that's one of the issues with pitching in Baltimore. But when you come to a place like San Francisco where they're looking to untap your potential, not the potential that they see in you, it's the potential that you have. And then you look at the bottom of the rotation in Alex Wood and Johnny Cueto. And these are guys, again, going back to that fountain of youth.
Yeah.
Johnny Cueto, his numbers are solid. Alex Wood, his numbers are solid. They don't blow you away. But that's what San Francisco does. They don't blow you away, but they find ways to win.
And they're doing it by committee.
They are. Exactly. And the same goes for the relievers, too. Tyler Rogers has been great at the back end. Jake McGee, another fountain of youth thing. His career seemed like it had gone down the tubes after being fantastic in Tampa Bay. Struggles in Colorado. Doesn't really have a place in the MLB. San Francisco picks him up, albeit they didn't think that they had very much expectations this year to be the best team in baseball, and he performs. Dominic Leone, another guy, didn't necessarily perform as well as this with the Jays and with St. Louis, but he's one of the best relievers in baseball right now. As you just look at his numbers, sporting 169 ERA, a whip around 1, hitters are only hitting 170 off of him.
Yeah.
And then Jose Alvarez, same sort of thing. He didn't perform in other places, kind of bounced around from team to team, and now he's found a spot in that back end. And it all equates to, like you said, it's going by committee. And it's the fact that they're just a diverse team that will find, they don't, like I said, they don't blow you away, but they almost do based off their team rankings here.
It's like consistency and steady wins.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not like the Jays blowing teams out.
No.
But they're consistently putting a team effort in day after day.
Yep.
And getting wins in a seemingly easy way. Now, what kind of impact do Gabe Kapler and Scott Harris have on the route this team has taken?
I think it's one of those things. I'll focus in on Gabe Kapler here. Scott Harris has done a great job with this team as well. But Gabe Kapler, like a lot of these pitchers, like I talked about Kevin Gausman, I talked about Darren Ruff, they needed the right situation to succeed. Dominic Leone's another guy, Jake McGee. Gabe Kapler, it didn't look great for him in Philadelphia. You know, his first job, few seasons there, you know, they had the expectations of bringing in Bryce Harper. Didn't work out. They haven't made the playoffs. They may not make the playoffs this year. So it's clear to see that Gabe Kapler wasn't the problem there. It's just that the Philly system wasn't a fit for Gabe Kapler. Gabe Kapler's a good manager, and he's a player's manager too. There are guys that, I'm pretty sure Evan Longoria was his teammate at one point in Tampa Bay. It's one of those things where when younger managers, they may lack experience, but they understand what a big league ball club and what a clubhouse looks like right now, and they can relate to these guys, and guys listen to them more than the traditional style. They're willing to adapt and really play a deep lineup. As you look at Kevin Cash in Tampa Bay, he's really utilized every guy on his bench, and they can come in and slot into the lineup wherever. It's the same thing with San Francisco, but again, they're the name brand Tampa Bay Rays. They just have those names that you recognize in Crawford, Posey, Evan Longoria. So, yeah, they're a huge factor. I think if they have an older style manager, as you saw when they had Bruce Bochy, they had their success with Bruce Bochy, but the game has changed since they last won a World Series in 2014. And there's just a lot of older managers that haven't adapted their style. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So Gabe Kapler is a huge reason why this team is where they are.
Okay.
Like I mentioned before, it may not look like San Francisco blows you away, but they've accumulated the sort of performance this year that warrants them being at the top top or near the top in the National League in so many categories. As we'll start with hitting here. They're top in the National League in slugging, OPS, and home runs. So when they hit the ball, they hit it hard. And when you hit it hard, it's easier to manufacture runs in that case. They're hitting second. They're second in average, second in on-base percentage, second in RBIs, second in walks. So it shows that not only do they hit for power, as a lot of the time you see power teams aren't disciplined, they're still a disciplined team. They're still getting on base. They're still being productive and driving in runs. They're still hitting for average. So it's one of those things where everyone may think the Dodgers are the best team in the National League. Well, hold on a sec. San Francisco's doing the exact same thing as normally. As right now, it's really the Dodgers are 1-2 in most of these categories. So you have to put them in the same conversation, even though they're playing entirely different games. And the same goes for pitching. They're up near the top in walks for hitters. Well, they issue the least amount of walks in the National League. They're second in ERA. They're second in earned runs. They're second in home runs allowed. Second in WHIP. And top 3 in opposing batting average. So while they're getting that performance from their hitters, they're also getting equal performance from their pitchers. And again, on the you look at the stat sheet, there are better pitchers than what they have, or there should be on paper better pitchers than what they have, but the stats will prove that, San Francisco is a team that, you probably shouldn't root against in this case because they're going to prove you wrong in so many ways.
Yeah, in terms of management, I think Gabe Kapler knows his players better than any other manager.
Yeah.
And he knows how to use his team to get wins, and that's why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
I guess you can say they're killing the situational game.
They really are. They're certainly a team that, if they win the World Series this year, which they very well could, that's 4 World Series in 12 years. That's a third of the World Series in the past 12 years going to one team. And it didn't look like they were going to get back to that stage. But especially you look at a lot of guys on this team that were part of at least one of those World Series winning teams. And it's one of those things where you thought, okay, well, this team's a little old. This team's not like this. It has its young pieces, but it also has its old pieces. It's not, as the game gets younger, it seemed like San Francisco was a team that hadn't necessarily caught up yet. But it just shows that you can have older guys like Crawford and Posey in your lineup, and you can still win. You can still win games despite the fact they haven't won since 2014.
So you look at Brandon Crawford, Buster Posey. Who else did they have on those championship-winning teams? Those are the two.
Brandon Belt would have been there, yeah.
So you look at guys like that, the guys they built that culture around. It goes to show that you don't always have to sell off your vets to get back into contention. Whereas you keep those guys who you built that culture around, they can implement that to new acquisitions and get right back to where they need to be. And I think their success is very much sustainable.
And new acquisitions don't necessarily have to be guys that are coming up through your system. As you look at that bullpen, three out of the 4 right off the top of my head had success elsewhere in McGee, Leone, Alvarez. You look, Darren Ruff had success in the majors, lost that success, had it in the KBO, and now comes here and continues to have success. Evan Longoria is another guy who they acquire him. He looked as though his career was coming to an end, but he's kind of revitalized that this year. Anthony DeSclafani, Johnny Cueto, Alex Wood. It's guys that it doesn't have to be guys coming up through your system with the ways that you look at a team like the Atlanta Braves with Ozzie Albies and Ronald Acuna. When Mike Soroka was pitching, there's another guy. It doesn't have to be guys that you draft and develop into your own system. It just has to be guys that fit your system. So that's another thing too, that just because baseball's getting younger doesn't mean that veteran guys who just need a change of scenery can't solve that problem and add to that culture as well.
Yes, sir.
So with that, that'll do it for our San Francisco Giants video. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, give it a like down below. Subscribe so you don't miss any of our other uploads. Comment down below what you think of the San Francisco Giants this year. make sure to stay tuned. We will have other videos like this, other baseball videos, as the postseason comes up and the off season nears. So make sure, again, subscribe so you don't miss any of those uploads. Again, comment down below your thoughts, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.